In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I prepare paper to paint on with oil paints. So I've got two different kinds. I've got this pack of, let's see, here it is, no affiliation. This is the Clairefontaine. It is 250 grams. Paper, it's good for gouache and things like that, but can you use it for oil paints? And I also have a watercolor block that's 300 grams that is kind of perforated here. You can see that. So I'm going to use these two and fix them up so that they are good for painting. My name is Vita Evenson and I paint grease. So what's needed in order to gesso these is, of course, gesso, just acrylic gesso works. And we're going to need also a palette knife. This is the biggest one that I have. You can use bigger ones depending. And also a brush. And I'm going to use this little tray to put the gesso in with some water and mix it up to break up the gesso so it's not so gooky. Okay, so here's a paper that I'm going to be using. I'm just getting my gesso ready, mixing it up. That dark stuff in there was a little bit of acrylic paint that got in there. It doesn't harm it in any way. Just taping some of it, just taping it down to the board so that, you know, it stays stable and doesn't move around and muck around and I don't get gesso all over the board while I'm doing that. And just kind of stretching out the paper as well. This is a watercolor pad. It's a bit thicker than the paper. And again, I'm going to be adding some tape and just taping down the paper onto the entire pad. It really helps when you're applying things like gesso for buckling and things like that. In the tray, I'm going to be adding a little bit of water to the gesso to break it down a little bit and make it thinner. It doesn't need to be as thick. I want to put on 3 different coats to really seal it in, and if it's too thick, it doesn't work. So just taking the palette knife, scraping along, I'm getting it as thin as I can. I don't want it too thick. I want thin layers, ones that will dry very quickly and not clump anywhere. And just spreading it across the page. Very quickly it does dry by the time I finish with the watercolor paper. It's pretty much dry and I can go back and do the next layers. But you can see, you know, scraping back as much as possible so that the other layers coming on will be very smooth and workable. So there's a couple things you can do with this. You can use the palette knife and just keep scraping it to have a very, very smooth type of surface, or you can take the gesso and add thick brush strokes like I'm doing here. And I like doing it this way for landscapes because the gesso will dry and it'll just be a little bit rough. It will have some of those lines as if they are brush strokes on the canvas, and it works for me very well with the landscapes. If I were doing portraits or still life, I don't think that I would do that. So that's how I take paper and use it for my painting studies. I won't use this paper for oil painting when it's for an actual real painting. If you're going to do an actual real painting that's to be sold and is archival, you need to use good quality linen and not paper. Eventually, it's not going to hold up over the years. So this is just for little tiny studies, checking things out, learning something new. You just want to get the sketch down so that when you come to your easel with a canvas, you know where you're going. These paper type canvases are great when doing, for example, an upcoming oil painting challenge where we're going to be painting landscapes, and I want to do them on small canvases. It's going to be a 30-minute challenge. So can you paint a landscape in 30 minutes? A matter of putting things into perspective, working from large masses to smaller masses and not getting detailed. So this size is perfect. And because it is a challenge, and challenges are there to help the artist break through and break free of their typical habits, so that you can become a better artist. So that's like a perfect example of using these paper canvases. And you can use them going out plein air painting as well if you're just kind of getting a quick kind of study done. With that, be inspired, be creative, be you. See you next time.